Drum roll, please. Welcome to the Your First Launch podcast, episode number 1. My name is Alex Poscente.
I'm Dave Schatz.
We're here to yap and be your friends in tech.
Welcome to the show.
Okay, so to start out, Dave, let's just rip an intro, Like people don't know us. They don't know who we are. We're not household names yet, which might be resolved by, this podcast, but why don't you go first?
Sure. I am Dave Schatz, currently CTO at Titan, fintech company. Previously co-founder of a fun social app called Gas. Prior to that, built a couple companies in the video technology space, Tape and Circles. And before that, I was an early engineer at Facebook, where I built and opened the New York engineering office with 3 other folks. And we grew it from, the 4 of us that started in New York to 500 plus engineers by the time I left in 2016.
So you're telling me you're worth a lot of money, Dave.
You would think so. Alex, tell us about you.
So I'm a firecracker cowgirl from Dallas, Texas, serial entrepreneur. Okay. You want it, I'll build it.
She does. She builds it.
No, jokes aside, I built and scaled 2 global companies. One was called Bits Crypto, in essence, acorns for crypto. So we would do spare change roundups into cryptocurrencies. We ended up being one of the top micro investment partners to Coinbase. I helped advise on policy with Congress and Senate, worked with them on the Fit 21 bill. And over the past 5 years, I built and scaled this company called Ivy Insights, which started as Upwork for students during the pandemic. And then now it has more or less morphed into a software studio for influencers and celebrities, where I am super bullish on the future of creators, and it's all about monetizing your audience in a scalable way. This past year, Bits was acquired, and I got poached to work with Project Liberty, where I helped support on their core technology called Frequency, all about data ownership, and worked on the bid to buy TikTok. So bringing together some of the influencers I know, working with this consortium of billionaires, and that has been super interesting. So brings us to today. Dave and I advise startups. We invest in startups.
We build startups.
Yeah. And honestly, this is just for us to yap and talk to you guys about what we think is happening in the market. So why don't we go through, Dave, this past week, obviously you're building up Titan. Talk a little bit about where you're at in the company, in the process. Like, what are the current roadblocks? What have you learned this week?
Yeah. So would love to. Titan is a fintech company. We started out as a hedge fund in your pocket and have built out tons of products over the years and have morphed into a wealth management suite where we're replacing the financial advisor and wealth manager and making it more accessible to everybody. Whereas Goldman Sachs requires a $10 million net worth to have access to wealth managers and access to certain types of alternative investments. Titan can help you in those same ways without the same barrier to entry.
What do you think is like the right pocket of person to use Titan? Describe their profile. How much money do you have in the bank? How old are you probably?
Ideally, your mid-20s and up is a great place. I think younger than that, you're getting introduced to the market through some of these, whether it be crypto, whether it be Robinhood. At some point, you start making some real money. You start realizing that this is gambling in a sense, the way that you've been approaching finance. You need to approach it in a more intentional way, and you're looking for some support for planning for your future and investing in the right things. And I think that's the exact right time to engage with Titan when you want to start taking your finance seriously.
Okay, and I obviously am very close to you, Dave, but you came in to Titan at a time where there was, in essence, like no engineering team, right? And you had to go and build it from the ground up. So how did you find those superstar hires? Like, how have you been building this team?
So how do I think about building the team? We are building a world-class engineering team from the ground up. And it's super exciting for me. I'm looking for world-class talent, A players. A players like to play with other A players. The way that I'm thinking about team structure, I'm a big believer in playing your strengths. And I think finding incredible people, senior level, very experienced folks that are autonomous, that can take a lot of ambiguity and complexity, turn that into projects, requirements, be autonomous and be able to build those things, stacking complementary people next to each other. Someone loves working on AI. Other people don't love working on AI. Finding the right folks for the right job, putting the right players in the right positions on the field. I'm a big believer in playing your strengths. I think there's a lot of value in shoring up your weaknesses, being well-rounded. When you play someone with their strengths, there's no limit to how high they can go, how far they'll go, and the amount of creativity that gets unlocked by doing that. No egos, no attitudes. Everyone who's just curious, ambitious, hungry, wants to learn. Those synergies and that knowledge transfer, it allows you to look at problems in different ways and allows you to support your teammates in different ways. And these are the best teams that I've been a part of and the best teams that I've ever built. And that's what we're doing at Titan.
They're almost like puzzle piece dynamics. Do you see the entire vision of this is what the most effective team could possibly look like? And let me find these players who can do different things. Like, do you have that end in sight before you start? And how do you map it out?
I have a good sense for the core team. What I'm trying to do now is find the initial core team and then figure out our capacity and figure out what's missing. And then we can add on from there. But I want a small core team so we can build a rhythm together. We can figure out how fast we can move, what we can bite off, where everyone fits. And then we can add to the team from there.
At Wharton, we learned this really interesting thing. It was like our first week that we got there. They made every single student in the freshman class take a few personality assessments and behavioral assessments to see naturally what are your core competencies as a leader and a thinker and a strategist. And by the end of it, they in essence share if you have mainly woo, you might be really, really strong at, winning others over. You might be really strong at a sales role, or, if you're leadership or visionary elements, if you index highly for, they basically said, okay, this is your map to success. And our job is not to make you average at what you're already bad at. Our job is to make you exceptional at what you're already good at. So figure out what you're naturally really good at and lean in heavily,
How have you explored within yourself to identify what some of these things are that you are naturally good at so that you can lean into those things? How have you identified what those are internally?
Okay. So me personally, I love talking to people. I'm super social, very extroverted. I think I think everyone has a natural pulse check on what lights their fire, the thing that doesn't feel like work. For instance, every single day, I probably have some sort of like social outing every single day on my calendar after work. And that lights my fire. It could be a networking event. It could be me meeting with a former alumni for coffee. It could be me going to an investor happy hour, whatever it is. I stack my calendar because I know that's incredible top of funnel for friendship or business or personal life, which sounds like crazy robot psycho mode, but it lights my fire. It's like one of my strengths is I have a really strong network and I can get in touch with so many people. I want to say if Kevin Bacon is 6 degrees away from anyone, I'm for sure at least 5. Like, I feel really good about that.
I completely agree with that statement, by the way. I can completely agree with that statement. I think it's 5 is probably on the high end of where you stack on all of this. You are such an incredible networker. It is a superpower of yours. You put you in a room full of strangers, you walk out with a few best friends, and everybody in that room knows you and knows your story. And you haven't even talked to half of them. Like, you're electric, Alex. You are. It is such a superpower. It really is. And it's amazing that you've identified that about yourself, that you lean into that, and that you're using that, because it'd be a shame. It'd be such a shame if you didn't lean into that and you didn't bring that to the world, because you bring so much value to other people's lives by just the way that you interact with them.
So good. Yeah, no, that's so sweet, Dave. And y'all are gonna find too, Dave is actually the sweetest man you'll ever meet or listen to in the world. It's freaking incredible. Shout out to Dave's mom. This episode is sponsored by Dave's mom for raising her son so well.
Thank you, Mom. You are incredible. We love you.
But no, honestly, like that. So that's an example of like, I naturally gravitate toward people. I get so much energy from it. And so I just lean in as heavily as possible because, for instance, I have a few random business ideas. One is in the land space. One is in the laundry. One is in PE roll-ups. One is in the influencer, whatever. I can call people in all of these different industries and respective spaces and pick their brains in a way that feels safe and high trust. Okay, back to you. What do you think your natural superpower is that you just became exceptional at?
I'm very confident in my abilities as an engineer. I think I'm a pretty great engineer, but I think what my specialty is thanks to the fact that I had two incredibly athletic brothers. Growing up, I was such a nerd and I was behind the computer all the time. I had my mom buy me C++ textbooks just so I could learn to code on my own. I was just such a nerd. Without them, I wouldn't be the socially normal and like well-rounded person that I am. And that introduced me to things like team sports, which I love. And I grew up playing team sports. And it's those dynamics that taught me how to be a team player, how to be a leader, how to interact with folks, which I think has impacted my career in so many ways that I think has held back other engineers in the past from growing in various ways or experiencing different things. And so, as an entrepreneur and as an engineer, my social aptitude, similar to yours, is I think the thing that's carried me through in many ways and has opened a lot of doors for me and has given me the confidence to go up and speak to people that maybe others wouldn't, or be able to carry conversations in whatever capacity. And I think my curiosity, I'm so interested in anything I don't know. My grandpa once said, "You'll never know everything, but you can learn anything." And I've always carried that because I'm so curious and interested. And if there's a topic that I don't know about, it's okay to not have an opinion on it and to want to learn. And that's how I approach things. I'm constantly curious, and those seem to be qualities that people gravitate towards because
Oh my
it's
gosh,
open doors for me. So
the most eligible bachelor in all of America right here. Let's talk about general market observations, what we see. I have a theory about AI. All right. There has been no better time than to try to build anything right now because there's so much market volatility and AI tooling is so readily available and free. And I have a theory that in the next 2 to 5 years, once it's fully commoditized, we're going to see an insane price increase when it comes to AI infrastructure. Why I think that is because obviously we'll hit, in my mind, certain capacity constraints. I think it's complete greenfield right now with, OpenAI's pricing model. They started free, they moved to $9.99, they had the $19.99, they moved up to $200, and there's such high adoption rates. I don't think it's going to end. So I think if I were a betting woman, which sometimes I am, money on red always, I would say in like 2 to 5 years, AI will be benchmarked like the car industry. You can buy an AI infra package for 2K, 3K ish, up to infinite, whatever. You could buy a Ford or a Ferrari. It'll get you to the same place, but one is going to be a lot sexier, cleaner, faster, stronger.
super interesting. Super interesting. My head goes to a few different places. I hear this.
Yeah.
Just to share my thoughts. I think right now, most of the AI and ML that happens on GPUs. I think we're starting to see DeepSeek showed us that you can do a lot of damage on CPU. And I think since the majority of machines out there are CPU-based machines, and there's so much compute capacity available on CPU, we're going to start seeing much more development leaning into how to create more efficient AI models on CPU because we're so supply constrained by GPU. And I think if we were to stay GPU only, I would agree completely with what you're saying. But I think we're going to start to see more and more advancement in AI over CPU, which will unlock Amazon's entire existing data center to do AI work instead of having to use companies like Lambda or I think Render might be another one, or some of these AI specific infra plays.
Do you think that a lot of that will be housed offshore in the more sophisticated infrastructure systems, like to Chinese companies and white labeled out, or is America now in this race to follow suit behind it? What's your perspective?
I think the existing infra players are going to benefit from this. And by that, I mean AWS, Azure, any of the existing cloud providers. We'll definitely see competition overseas. I think the question is, with all this data, where will people trust their data? And where will people, like, which models will people trust? Will you trust in the hands of foreign adversaries? Do people consider America a foreign adversary? I don't know. So, like, if you're a startup outside of the US, would you, house your data or your models inside the US? I'm not sure. It's a great question. What do you think?
I think that America is in an extremely fragile place. Obviously, we have like the most powerful man in the world, Trump, versus the most wealthy man in the world, Elon Musk, going head to head currently on Twitter, X, and Truth Social. I think it immediately impacted crypto markets. Yesterday, Bitcoin went down to around like 100, 101. It bounced back up. There's a slight correction this morning. Across the board, though, there's so much fragility and they're still indexing a recession end of the year. I think a lot of companies, as a byproduct, are going to constrict and probably cut costs and maybe lean more heavily into AI integrations, but not necessarily have that much resource and funding, which could put us at even more of a deficit and behind the curve in terms of where adoption goes and where people are actually building the infrastructure. So if I were to guess, movements around it, I think China's algorithmic and AI capacity and potential, it's so strong. I mean, take like their user or database for reference. They have all of the data of the entire country in their repository.
You're talking about TikTok.
I'm talking about China, like CCP, all of the data on someone's
Mm-hmm.
phone, can't access, different socials, obviously. Everything is indexed, everything's accounted for. They have such strong, like, no wonder they have such a strong algorithm. Their data pool is every single person in the country, versus there will be this inherent tug of war, I think, when it comes to freedom and having a model that is yours and being independent and not being part of someone else's data set. I think it's going to grow, honestly. And I don't see America being necessarily at the forefront of it.
I think it'll be interesting as we see devices become more powerful. Like every new iPhone is going to have more and more AI capabilities, stronger, whether it's, a better Apple chip that's capable of doing AI processing but I think the devices that we have are going to be capable of doing things on device, which will reduce our reliance or dependence on some of these services. But at the same time, to your point, if the type of AI work that you are trying to leverage requires a ton of data, then we'll have to process those systems. Question for you, and this may be a bit of a segue.
Totally.
You mentioned, because right now, literally as we speak, there is this feud between Trump and Musk. And you mentioned how that affected the Bitcoin price.
Yeah.
If Bitcoin is meant to be a hedge against, currencies like the US dollar, why do you think it would dip with news like this?
Such a good question. That's historically how it was built, but it became a reserve in multiple different countries and market makers got involved. And now there are too many people in the TradFi world who control the Bitcoin supply for it to truly be a hedge. Now it's almost directly correlated to where the US market moves. The first time that was not true was about like 2 weeks ago, where US dollar tanked, Bitcoin went up. I think it's too early to tell if Bitcoin, I have friends who are traders who spend 24 hours a day doing this. They're a lot closer to it, but their position was, if it goes above 118, it's full price discovery this past week. It's sitting out at 104. If it goes below 100, if it hits like the 65 to 85 range, that's an interesting time. That's when you would likely, again, this is not financial advice, but that's when you likely would buy up, just because it's not going to go below that threshold by very much or by a very high margin, just because capacity isn't there. If governments start moving away from Bitcoin, I could see it being a true hedge. But right now, there are too many correlated interdependencies for that to be true.
Cool. Super interesting.
Yeah, right. Anyway, for the final segment, Dave and I are going to do rapid fire questions for each other. 1 minute on the clock per person. Favorite artist?
Falling in Reverse, probably, or A Day to Remember, or The Used.
Yes, he's angsty. Okay. If you were to have 24 hours in any random place in the world, where would you go?
Southeast Asia. So interesting out there. Beautiful out there. It's crazy. It's wild. Like Cambodia.
Okay. Dream car.
A Bronco. Like an
What year?
old restored Bronco.
Wow. All right. What company would you short?
I would probably short an entertainment company. I think entertainment companies are going away, or like the movie as we know it is going away. I think there still will be films coming out and whatever, but I think just the teams will become smaller and the production crews will become smaller, and all of it is because so much of it is gonna be done by AI.
Favorite color?
You're gonna hate this. It's either like Brown or orange? So weird. I'm like the weirdest person.
That's that's a hot take. This podcast is unofficially sponsored by the colors brown and orange. They don't get a lot of love, except for on
Okay, my turn. My turn. We're flipping it. We're flipping it. Okay, I'm setting the clock.
okay, rapid fire.
What is the most overrated tech trend right now?
Ooh, honestly, like marketing AI companies, I'm just like yawn, 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 yawn. I think the email automated AI company and the Salesforce, I just like I want to call, I want to have a person, and that's the boomer in me. Okay, next question.
What is a piece of tech that everybody loves that you just don't get?
The Whoop rings.
Mm.
And I want to like it, but I get like oddly claustrophobic when I have to wear something, especially if there's some sort of like tech constantly radiating in me. Yeah.
Fair, totally fair. What is the oldest piece of tech that you still regularly use?
Good question. I'd say speaker system, probably.
Hmm.
Episode 1 done. Go follow your first launch. We love you.
We love you. Your first launch. Tell us
No,
what you're building.
let's say bye on 3. 1, 2, 3. Bye.
Bye. It's not.